Hey everybody, welcome to Entrepreneurship Essentials for Creators. I'm so excited to just kick off and get started. I'm Amira Polack. I'm the founder and CEO at Struct Club. We're all about bringing structure to instructors and fitness professionals who are inspired by music. And all of this that we're going to be talking about today is bringing together digital first entrepreneurs, a few, especially women entrepreneurs, AAPI entrepreneurs who I respect tremendously and can't get enough insights from. So excited to come together and talk about a few of the top topics that are on the minds of entrepreneurs interfacing with the digital world today, especially creators, and all the different angles that these entrepreneurs that we have on our panel today bring to the table. So feel free, for those of you who are on live, to drop questions into the chat as we go along, and we'll answer them as we have time. So I'm going to introduce each of the panel speakers one at a time in alphabetical order. And as I call each of you out, feel free to share where it is you're calling in from today, the mission of your brand, and the number one issue you're seeing entrepreneurs and biz owners seek advice to you about these days. So Aneri, go ahead.
Hi everyone. Well, it's such a pleasure to be here today. My name is Aneri. I'm calling in from Palm Springs, and along with Nehariika, I'm one of the co-founders of Medisyn, a healthcare provider review platform specifically for minority communities. And our mission is to help communities that have repeatedly been underserved by eliminating bias in patient care so that they can find physicians they love and experience healthcare that they deserve. The number one issue that college students have been coming to me with is specifically like they have an idea, but they don't know where to start, whether that's expanding a product line or just creating a whole new company from scratch. And for that, I say, like, this is what me and Nehariika did, but just start a simple user survey to understand the problem and take it from there.
Well, that flows perfectly into Nehariika's introduction. Go ahead, Nehariika, I'm going to pass it off to you. And actually, it'd also be interesting to hear a little bit about what you're doing on campus at UCLA.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll answer that question for Aneri first. She didn't have a chance to, but she is the president of a fantastic entrepreneurship club on campus called Bruin Ventures. But to introduce myself, my name is Nehariika Kakkar. I am the co-founder of Medisyn along with Aneri. At UCLA, I'm the president of Bruin Women in Business, which is fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough to anyone who's at UCLA or interested in business. Aneri explained Medisyn's mission perfectly, so I will not repeat it. But something else that students do come to us seeking advice on is also how to finance, the very initial portions of a company. I think that can be really daunting, and something that Aneri and I have leaned on a lot is that a lot of college students, including ourselves when we were freshmen and sophomores, were really just looking for work experience. It didn't need to be the most glamorous job with a high-paying salary, but something that kind of got our foot in the door. And I think tapping into that, especially at the university level, has been really helpful for us. And so that is something I would recommend to any young entrepreneurs, especially those that are at the university level right now.
Brilliant tips. Thanks, Nehariika. Cynthia, how about you?
Hi everyone, I'm Cynthia Hong, really excited to be here with you all today. So I'm a content creator on TikTok under the username Career Babe. And there I share a lot of career advice and job tips to help people secure the job and internship of their dreams. I'm calling in today from San Francisco. So my day job, actually, we're about to go back to the office soon, but my day job is I work in partnerships and marketing for a fashion company based out here in San Francisco. So I see a lot of people coming to me, mainly asking about kind of my TikTok presence and how I built that. I actually started back May of last year. So right when the pandemic first started, and I have a lot of students coming to me, asking me to look over their resumes to help them find and secure a job and internship. And on the flip side, I have a lot of businesses coming to me, asking me about how to create a presence on social media, specifically TikTok, and how to really tap into the younger Gen Z audience there. So really excited to be here with you all, and happy to answer any questions in all of these fields.
Really exciting. I can see that the bench of different angles of expertise is getting deeper and deeper as we introduce each of our speakers. So Lori, I'm going to introduce you next.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Shao, and I'm the CEO and founder of Finli. And I'm zooming in today from Arcadia, California. Many of you may or may not know where that is. That is just east of downtown Los Angeles and slightly east of Pasadena for those that never ventures on the east side. Anyway, and so Finli, F-I-N-L-A, it stands for financial lift. So it's in our DNA to financially lift communities, one small business at a time. And we started off providing back office solutions for solopreneurs, all of those aspiring entrepreneurs that have this dream and never make it into a reality. And as we all know, if you have a dream, you can have tons of dreams. You can be like the best problem solver out there. But if it doesn't translate into a business or become a business, then it's just an idea, right? And so for me, I've always, as a first generation immigrant, I've always had ideas. I've always been this person who's like, okay, I want to solve this problem and that problem. And I never, had the resources to dive into entrepreneurship until like 17 years in a corporate job later, finally had the audacity, and the courage to do so. And I built Finli really with the intent of helping others accelerate their dreams into reality. And Finli is essentially an all-in-one invoicing solution for service businesses, right? So figuring out who is supposed to pay you, how much, when, how much, like on whose behalf is such a astronomical task for many small businesses when you are just focusing on growing your book of business and thinking strategically. Many small business owners are not business savvy behind the scenes, and you don't really need to be if you're able to leverage the right technology to help you elevate to the next level. And that's what we do. Thank you.
Rock on. And to wrap your intro, what is the number one piece of advice that entrepreneurs are coming to you for these days?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Why? So many ask, like, why am I paying an arm and a leg for processing fees? Is it the cost of doing business for me to not know how much I'm supposed to make? I mean, it's the harsh reality for many small business owners out there when, we're expected to know what's in the fine print and what all these contracts represent and how I'm supposed to run and grow my business, by leveraging all of these resources that may or may not be, a never-ending dark money pit hole for me. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's really valuable. And so getting into our main discussion, I have a question, and this is for all of the speakers, and we'll go in the same order. When we read articles about entrepreneurs, and I'm sure when you get interviewed by press, as I do, the top questions that we get asked are often about the origin story, the company pitch, how their product and service is pertinent to current events. But behind the scenes, the top question that we see at Struck Club in our community from would-be entrepreneurs, as well as entrepreneurs who are up and running in their businesses and launching new offerings, is this: how and when do you know that your idea is significant enough to commit your time, your life hours really to it? So how do you evaluate this decision? Aneri, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Amira. Well, to be fair, Nehariika and I are still completing UCLA, so we haven't fully committed our life hours to medicine yet. We're just wrapping up on our educations first. But what we started noticing is when we are prioritizing medicine over our other responsibilities and commitments, to our other organizations that we're involved in on campus or to classes, that's when we're really like, wow, I wish, instead of being in this meeting, I wish I was working on medicine. And just last weekend, me and Nehariika spent like 3 hours straight just working on creating social media content. And it was super fun. Like no other tasks or responsibilities that we had like came into mind. We were just so excited to be working on it. I think that's the first sign. And then for us, the second sign is when you start getting traction. So Nehariika and I are like quite logical and quantitative people. So when the numbers start picking up, that's when we'll reevaluate going forward.
Anything else there, Nehariika, that you wanted to add?
Oh, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think the biggest thing was that, that 3-hour social media graphic meeting that we were supposed to have, it's supposed to be an hour. So I think that also, plays into, how much you enjoy doing what you're doing and whether the mission that you've created and now are kind of building out to solve takes priority in your life.
Gotcha. So if I'm hearing this right, the passion is very important, but also the numbers are very important that you're seeing. So Cynthia, we've talked about this a lot, that your social media presence over the course of years, you talked about your TikTok being built really just over the past year, but even before that, you've invested a lot of time in building up your social media presence as well as strategy. So how did you know that, kind of the ideas that you had behind your social media branding presence, your channels, was significant enough for you to make the plunge in committing that extensive amount of time?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it's a huge investment in time. Takes so much time to think of ideas, create the actual content. So I really commend Aneri and Nehariika for actually going through that. It's not easy. But I would say for me, I definitely tested a lot. So I was trying a lot of different types of content, and when I was going through the process, some pieces of content will just blow up, and other you don't really know why, and you have to think through kind of the reason behind it and look at the metrics. And sometimes you'll think of some idea and you're like, wow, that's super cool, I'm gonna get views on it, and then it's a complete flop. So I think just testing a lot of different ideas and paying attention to trends is something I started to lean more and more into. I actually started broadly with more lifestyle content, and if you look on my own personal Instagram, you'll see that a lot of the content I post there is more fashion and lifestyle. But when I got on TikTok, I was trying the lifestyle, fashion, beauty, and then I started posting career. And then I noticed that career content just got more engagement, more likes, more comments. People were asking me a lot of questions in the comment section, and I was responding. And I just saw a really big need and a really big interest there. So that's how I really leaned into the career side. And as I started to grow and I started to build a community, that's when I felt like, wow, a lot of people are actually being impacted by the content I create, and I'm actually making a difference. And I think that level of fulfillment made me feel like I could really take that step to just dive in and commit more and more of my time to it. And it's not easy, especially balancing it with a day job, but I think having that community there and being able to engage with people and hear their thoughts. And then whenever I get comments about, I just landed this job interview, or I just landed this job because of you, thank you so much for all of your tips and advice, that just continues to fuel me. So I think it's really important to find out what your personal passions are and what you're driven by, because I think that also impacts whether or not you have that fire to keep going, even when it's hard.
That's really helpful. And in Lori's case, I know, Lori, you had jumped from some really juggernauts in the financial industry. You've been at JP Morgan, you've been at SVB. These are major institutions. So you went on to make this decision to make your own jump. But you're also dealing with entrepreneurs every day who are making their jump and making new commitments to product launches. So what's your take on this question?
I think the commitment is really hard, and it's almost like I almost wish I would have taken this plunge 10 years ago, because to me, I feel like if there's anything I regret is that I didn't do it sooner, because it only gets harder and harder as you age. I'm married, I have 2 kids, and then I don't know, for those of us, Asians, I'm Chinese, I feel like we've grown up conditioned to be extremely selfless. Your life is not your own. The decisions you're making, you have your whole family on your shoulder and taking this leap of faith together. And so as my family expanded, it became really difficult because, each month I bootstrapped was money out of my kids' college fund, right? And so you kind of just, you don't make decisions based on, I want to pursue this because this is my dream. That became dimmer and dimmer in terms of like the force or the motivation to make these type of decisions. And for me, the action that I took to do Finli and to walk away from a corporate career it really stemmed from, am I able to make the impact that I set out to make? Because if this is only something that's going to please me and check that box in my life, then it would not be significant enough for me to take this risk. It took me 17 years to get here, because I feel like for us, I'm very cautious. I've grown up with my parents reminding me over and over again, don't dream too big. You have to go to a large corporation, work your way up in the entry level. Like, that's kind of what you learn. Your definition of success is go to school, get good grades, get a job, get married, and do all of those things. So if you're being told, don't dream, don't be floating around the clouds, and you have to walk firmly, that's pretty much telling you, like, don't dream too big, because it will never become a reality. So how do you reconcile that against becoming an entrepreneur and empowering other entrepreneurs? So unless I was pretty firm, pretty committed, and also just firm in my opinion that I am the person with the team that we have to really make the impact that we set out to make, unless we're pretty certain of that, it was really hard. And I'm just speaking very realistically, because if it's not for the impact that's going to help and make a difference in other people's lives, I probably wouldn't have made this transition.
Absolutely. And thanks for being real about that and open about that, Lori. As I look through the actual attendees, the ones that I'm familiar with that are here today, we also have a lot of parents. We also have a lot of folks of Asian descent. We also have a lot of women. We have a lot of would-be parents as well. And so sharing that nuanced perspective is really important for all of us. And so related to this topic and taking it one step forward, I'm going to ask Aneri and Nehariika as well. So when we get into that commitment, getting to those first steps, the top issues that you're seeing, and you're immersed in a community of early entrepreneurs, those top issues that trip up the earliest stage founders that you're seeing.
Yeah, I can start. I think one of the big ones is that most people who are interested in entrepreneurship, you get inspired by seeing very successful entrepreneurs give their talks, talk about their success stories. And while entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial journeys have now, become more, they've included more of the roadblocks. People have become more real over time. These stories are still embellished with, these wins that they had early on and these wins that they've had now, and all of the building blocks that have gotten them to where they are. And so I think for a lot of very early stage entrepreneurs, that's the picture in your head, right? Is all of these wins are going to happen in this sequence, and this is where I will end up. And I think that the issue that a lot of early entrepreneurs face is, there's a lot of work in the beginning before you really see that first win or you hit that first big milestone. And it's important to maintain your momentum during those first stages. And I think what Aneri and I have done that's been super helpful is surrounding ourselves by people who are in the same shoes as us, working crazy hours on projects that are slowly picking up steam, and you see something very great, but in the distance, and keeping each other motivated to continue. And I think that something that was really helpful for us is we entered a accelerator by UCLA, and it was just full immersion into the startup space and talking about different challenges that people have had and how they've been able to overcome them in regards to like legal troubles and marketing issues and hiring people, all of the things that go into starting a company that you don't hear in the TED Talk or in the speech that some very successful entrepreneur is giving down the line. And so the advice that I would give, the way I would sum that up, is immerse yourself in people who are there to motivate you and there to celebrate your wins, no matter how big or small they may be. But Aneri, anything to add?
No, Nehariika said it perfectly. It's really that community of entrepreneurs that where if you can find it, it helps you keep you accountable and excited to keep growing your business, because they'll celebrate their wins with you and vice versa.
That aspect of community is incredible. It actually brings me to another question. This one that I have for Cynthia. And now when we talk about scaling a brand, you've built a meaningful community initiative behind the scenes that folks might not see when they jump onto your TikTok page at first. This is something that we've chatted about, such as your mentorship program. So what's been your process in building an engaged tribe around your brand?
I think a lot of Sprout Mentorship's engagement truly came from the engagement that I naturally just built through my TikTok. I think on TikTok, I think the audience is obviously younger, and they're really seeking for some sort of community. They're seeking for belonging. And I think, when I noticed that a lot of people were coming to me asking me for help with their resumes, their cover letters for industries that I'm not even in myself, I was thinking about how can I create some sort of program that can truly allow people to match with someone who can help them in the journey they want to build for themselves. So that's what led me to creating Sprout Mentorship. And actually, when I first posted about it on TikTok, in 2 days, we received 1,000 signups just for that mentorship program. And I think naturally that need and that engagement for the program just funneled out of the community I was able to grow on social media. So I think a lot of times when we think of social media, we think of the primary factors of the likes, comments, views, subscribers, but I think there's a deeper level beneath that connects, social media to a program that you can build out for yourself. So I'd say a lot of that engagement just truly came from just the TikTok community I was able to build.
That's fantastic. And in building that community, now getting to the point of monetization, Lori, I'm sure you get tons of questions like this. We at Struck Club get tons of questions like this around monetization from our entrepreneurs, topics like pricing, topics that you started to bring up around the payment platforms. So what do you advise around this when you have business owners and entrepreneurs coming to you for questions?
I think the biggest challenge is, at least for many solopreneurs, especially those with maybe brick and mortar and the more traditional business types, where they're not the influencers, right? They can't just, especially during COVID, like when shelter in place happened, they had to close their doors, and when they close their doors, it means they cannot feed their family. They're the small business owners, and they can't, like, everybody couldn't figure out how to get on the internet, how to do a live stream, how to post videos. But the challenge is, how do you gatekeep? How do you monetize that? How do you actually, if you don't have that many followers, like how are you able to even capitalize on you being online? And so many of our small business struggle with that. And one of the challenges that we're able to help them overcome is provide them the tools or the platform to get online, to be able to provide their services to anyone, anywhere, and be able to collect payment in the most frictionless way. And one of the challenges with that, when small business or solopreneurs try to figure out themselves, is they have no idea how much they are looking to earn and how much they would be assessed, or how much charge that they're to expect. And that is such a scary situation to be in, when you don't know, are you charging too much? Are you charging too little? What is the break-even point on for you to retain your customer base or attract new customer base? How much is too expensive? And what does that mean? How do you actually get the money into your account? And so the entire logistics of it, it's such an undertaking for a small business who's never done it before. And I think the biggest advice we have is know your options. Really to ask the right questions, interview as many platforms as you can, and understand what does it entail from you on the business side to make this work. Do you need to be technical? Do you need to have support in-house? Do you need to outsource support on an ongoing basis? Are you able to track, the monetization in terms of like what are some of the options you have to make sure that the receivables or the payments coming in is in a steady manner, right? Many businesses, they think, I'm providing a service, but I'm going to treat my service business as a point of sale terminal or like a Shopify store, right? And I'm selling my service, but that's like completely incorrect, because if you think about it, like, don't you want to anticipate how much you're earning in the future months? Don't you want to set up subscription or recurring payment and have packages, right? Don't you want to have business individuals that signed up for monthly recurring type of price points for you, or be able to pay you lump sum for packages that they would redeem, for various sessions, so that you can get the money in right away? These are all different nuances of the business, and you might think of those, but how do you actually make it happen? How do you execute upon that? Like, are you keeping track with a pen and paper on how many sessions that this person have redeemed from you and how much is left and when their next billing cycle is? That is the reality for many small businesses and solopreneurs, especially last year when shelter in place happened, is to migrate them online and then to figure out how to actually make it a business.
Definitely. And one of the things I love as a little plug is that, and we have a few of them here today, but some of our community members at Struck Club are clients of the Finli platform and have seen their businesses be able to get set up, grow in a much easier way. And they're very diligent folks when you talk about like checking out the different solutions across the market, very diligent about the solutions that they choose. So just a little plug there for Finli. And so when it comes to these offerings, you started to jump into this a little bit. And one thing that I have seen the Medisyn team, Nehariika and Aneri, do over the past months is continually hone and get sharper on the offering, get sharper on the value proposition, the statement, what it is that you're offering to folks, and how to communicate that in a very concise and a crisp way. This is something we see a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. And when you jump to somebody's site, if somebody jumps to your site and they don't know what it is that you're offering or doing, how is it that you're going to convert them into your community? So what are some of the top things that you two have learned when it comes to sharpening, refining, making it really, really crisp, that value prop?
Well, first of all, you've been such a help during this process, Amira, for us trying to hone in on our value proposition. We definitely operate in a competitive environment. You have large players like ZocDoc, Healthgrades, and Google. And so what we've tried to emphasize and repeatedly discuss, not just between ourselves, Nehariika and I, but with anyone that's willing to listen, is like, who is our target market? What is your problem? And how are we the best ones to solve it? So all just, standard questions around value proposition. And what we have really been excited about is like, how can we incorporate bolder moves that our competition will either not take or be really slow to implement. And then once you develop such a deep understanding of your problem and your competitors, it becomes so much easier to be compelling to your audience overall. And for example, none of the provider review platforms that I mentioned before have a strong social media presence at all. Most of them haven't posted in months. So we are leveraging this opportunity to really appeal to our target market right now, which is young mothers from marginalized communities who are on Instagram and would love resources about navigating the healthcare system. And just as an aside, Amira has really helped us on this too, but like being as short as possible with what you are offering to your competitors. Don't make it a super long phrase, or, it has to be explained in a paragraph. If you can keep it short and sweet, that really helps.
Rock on. Anything else there, Nehariika?
Nope, she's got it.
Well, I think some of the things that you bring up too, when it comes to the competitive landscape, a lot of entrepreneurs within our community and would-be entrepreneurs that we have talked to about just the pain point and the fear of being, kind of that David and Goliath situation where you're, the pioneering entrepreneur, and there's some big players in the space. So actually knowing that getting familiar with that environment can help you to be sharper and more specific and more crisp about your offering is actually really encouraging in terms of getting over that barrier. Cynthia, one of the things that you started to touch upon earlier, and the number one piece of advice that you get is about just how do you get to scale with the virality, and talk to me a little bit about the experimentation that you did in finding that across different content, that career advice was really impactful, really resonant, and maybe some of the things that you anticipated would go viral weren't the things that went viral. Going viral is just one of the number one questions that we get about social media marketing from our fitness community of entrepreneurs. So do you have any recommendations for them or pieces of advice?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think something I touched on earlier was leaning into all of the trends that are happening across all the different platforms and new features. So with trends, TikTok always has a bunch of trends. You have to spend time just going through your For You page to start to pick up on kind of trending sounds, trending kind of themes. But I think the more time you spend, the more you'll be able to pick out, okay, this is what's happening. If you look through the Discover page, you can also get a good sense of kind of the different trending hashtags and some of the new kind of themes that are starting to go viral. So I think tapping into trends is really important. I'd also say any new features, if you leverage those, they tend to just naturally bump any piece of content you do. I know with Instagram, when they first launched Reels, a bunch of my peers on TikTok started posting on Instagram Reels and actually saw a huge bump in kind of their overall reach on Instagram. So I think just leveraging any of the new features that these companies build is really important. The other thing I'd say in terms of content is just thinking through how you can add value to your audience. So who are you really trying to target? Who are you speaking to? And what are they looking for? Or what kind of content is interesting to them? So I think thinking of ways in which you can truly add value to that audience will always pay itself forward. I'd also say anything that's a little controversial can tend to just bump views and engagement just because there's more people in the comments saying, you know, whatever. And naturally, just the more comments you get, the more engagement you'll get and the more views you'll get. So I've actually heard a number of people in the TikTok world tell me I should misspell some of the words that I use. Some of the words I use on my TikToks because people will comment, oh, you spelled that incorrectly, and then that naturally just boosts that organic reach. So that's not a tactic I've used myself, but if you're looking to, you know, just bump your views, I think anything slightly controversial can do pretty well. For me, a lot of content around salary or compensation, that just naturally gets a lot of views because it's something that's not frequently talked about in the career job space. And there's a lot of really opposing views on that side, whether you state your salary up front or you don't. So I think just topics like that in your world that can just initiate some sort of discussion in the comments, and for you to say, hey, like, let's talk about this, I think naturally it will start to build that community and engage that community. So those are some of my tips in terms of just getting good content and really leaning into potential virality of TikTok. I'd also say one other thing is naturally just scaling on social media is so hard. So if you guys are just starting out building your own brand, think about hiring interns. You know, these are people who are really interested in being a part of something that's growing, someone who's looking for experience. So not only is it giving students a chance to, do something really cool and gain some of that real world experience, but it also allows you to, do less of the brunt work in terms of scrolling all the time on the For You page and paying attention to all of the trends while also, trying to run your business. So I would really encourage you to think through bringing on interns, because I know there's a ton of students who really love that sort of opportunity.
These are some super helpful tactical pieces that you might not really expect when you just are scrolling around any given different social media platform. But knowing your audience really well, knowing the value there, bring on teammates to help you scale in some way, shape, or form, as well as knowing how the platforms work. It sounds like in addition, you've also really looked at how the algorithms bump content within those given platforms, which change as well, to make sure that your content is primed to get boosted, is also really helpful. Definitely some things that I wouldn't have expected there that are really valuable. So Laura, you brought up a bunch of things about so many different topics around the monetization payment platforms when it comes to like the business savvy areas that creative entrepreneurs struggle with a lot. Do you have any recommendations about crafting that journey from that initial interest point that may come from the content, that may come from those first early top of funnel touch points, as they might call it in sales, and crafting a journey into the payment experience that really gets folks to convert successfully? Any thoughts around that or themes that you talk about with the entrepreneurs in your network?
I think it's really important to identify what is your product, right? And product is really defined on what you can get paid on. Whether it is a service, whether it's something that you make, whether it is, pretty much whatever your business is built upon. And it's also important to identify the peripheral products that serve as lead magnet to attract and reach the customer base that you're going after. So for example, you might be providing your business around Spanish conversation, right? And you want to teach online, you want to have a book of business and grow your book of business. But you might start with, a specific unique demographic that is like, oh, let's watch novellas together, right? Like something of a lead magnet. I watched novellas growing up. I grew up in Miami, so I like to throw that out there. It's my favorite thing to do. But it's something that like truly resonates with your target audience, and it's not that invasive. I think it's important to identify what is your core business, which is what people are willing to pay for, and then identify a handful of peripheral features or like lead magnets that you can go out and really attract the customer base to you. And I think once you've identified what your product is, then you can assess what is the appetite for payment, right? And that really is influenced by who your audience is. Is it young people? Is it older people? Is it professionals? Is it seniors? And then you can get a sense of, okay, based on your market research, based on their ability to pay, how much you can charge for. And what's interesting, because at Finli, we provide those services for many entrepreneurs, and we see, there's an instructor that teaches Bollywood dance, and she's based in Manhattan, New York. And she charges pretty much like $5,000 per month for her students. And then you get other instructors, maybe in, some outskirts of like Kansas or elsewhere, that's teaching very similar curriculum, but they're charging $12 an hour. And they offer discounts. And so at the end of the day, you're thinking, wow, what is the difference in terms of like your where you see yourself and what value and what your asking price is? What's the difference between this person who is managing and running her studio in the outskirts of Kansas versus that individual who is teaching in Manhattan, right? And it's like such an interesting psychology there, because and what's also interesting to see is once everybody gets online and leverage technology, we automatically break down all of those barriers. It doesn't matter how fancy your studio is and what your zip code is. As long as you have passion and you have the skill set to provide your service, you should be able to demand your worth. And I think and what's interesting when we look at these solopreneurs on our platform, it's so true that they say like men, have all this confidence and they demand more. It is across the board true where the male instructors are actually, their price point is a lot higher than the female instructors, and they might be teaching very similar things. And maybe some of the female instructors have even more years of experience. It's just very interesting to see like, where do you where do you see yourself? Where is that price point? And because that price point really influences how you're going to run your business, how you're going to promote your business, who you're going after to grow your business. And so I think there's that amount of foundational work that needs to be in place for the individual with a great idea to running and scaling a successful business, right? Is to have that foundational work really sorted out and execute upon it.
Wow. And comment in the chat from Janelle, I do teach Bollywood, and wow, with some of those insights. And I think just the theme there of demanding your worth, like really flipping that mentality. We get so many questions, challenges from folks who are feeling very timid of pricing, very timid around, especially if, before the pandemic, they were working directly for a studio, directly for a health club or a gym where the products were priced are already priced, now going out on their own to figure out what to charge, how to charge, and how to demand their worth, really flipping that mentality from fear to really going out and saying, hey, look, there are these other instructors. By the way, the guys are charging XYZ amount. I have more experience on my bench. Maybe that's something to think about. And yeah, getting more comments here, the pay inequity that, some of the folks here just in the comments have experienced is disheartening for sure. Looking for ways to be more confident in demanding your worth and a current position that you hold. Absolutely super resonant. And, especially, we're especially seeing, as you're seeing, Lori, in the numbers, just the disparity there across the platform. And so just knowing that data, but also knowing that, by the way, as fitness professionals, you might have more years of experience than your counterpart who is offering something more. Just taking a look at the data can be very empowering. And so
technology really breaks down the barriers that you think is your glass ceiling, but they're becoming less and less obvious, and you should know that.
Absolutely. And Laura, you started to bring this up earlier. I wanted to open up this question to everybody too, is about, it's AAPI Heritage Month. We're wrapping it up this week. Asian American Pacific Heritage Month is on a lot of people's minds right now. And so we'd love if any of you could share one way in which your heritage plays a role, maybe 10 ways, maybe 50 ways, but as many as you'd be willing to share some ways that this plays a role in the way that you lead today.
Yeah, for sure. I think we can kick it off. So Aneri and I are very lucky, actually. Our entire team is made up of AAPI representation and women. So we are really, really fortunate to have this kind of powerhouse of a team that all comes from a very similar background. And touching upon something that Lori had mentioned at the beginning, I think it is very common in several Asian cultures to put others first, to stay selfless. And I think that what's interesting is that amongst our team, we put each other first. We're a very supportive, familial team in the way that we operate. And then in addition to that, it's very cyclical. We're also creating a product that is for people like us to help others like us. So it goes in this entire circle of protecting our community, making sure that everyone is experiencing unbiased healthcare and not being a victim to a lot of the white presence in medicine that has overshadowed a lot of minority representation and things like textbooks and general knowledge about identifying symptoms that maybe look different on people of Asian bodies or Black bodies. And so I think that overall, just the team and the composition of it that we have has been very unique in tailoring our product to be even more focused to this group of minorities and women. And it's been a great experience so far, just working in an all-women team made up in this way.
Just to quickly add on, I think it's always good to look at your heritage as a strength and not as a weakness, regardless if you're the only person that looks like you in the field that you're trying to enter. Just know that there's a whole community of people supporting you and rooting for you has always been great for Nehariika and I.
Fantastic to hear it. Cynthia, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think kind of pulling from what Aneri and Nehariika said, I think a lot of us, our parents often came from abroad. My parents came from Taiwan. They immigrated here back in the 80s, and I think they really had to build themselves from ground up, right? And it wasn't easy. They had to learn a new language, immerse themselves in a new culture, and I think that level of optimism and also hard work, that's something that I definitely picked up from my parents. And I feel like I see that in a lot of my fellow AAPI community members. So that's something that I would say for me has kept me going and has continued to give me a sense of direction and light in terms of how I can continue growing myself personally in my own career and on social media, on TikTok.
Amazing. And Lori, I know that this is an important topic to you too, and you had leveled it. Do you have more thoughts in areas that you wanted to dig into and share there?
Well, I feel like those of us who are immigrants to the U.S., especially like with my parents, like we did not come from an affluent background, and to watch my parents hustle, as I'm growing up, like they have their full-time jobs, they have their night gigs, on the weekends they're selling like silk t-shirts and cigar boxes in the flea market, like just really doing whatever they can to realize their American dream, and to give me an opportunity. And I feel like every decision I'm making as an adult is really influenced by what I have seen and witnessed firsthand growing up. And the compassion and the passion I feel towards the small business community is really stemmed from my upbringing, right? To see that they're struggling, after 30 years, the same things that my parents struggled with, there has to be some sort of a solution, and we have to come together and collectively help one another get to the next level.
Amazing, and a super inspiring message. We got some comments from the live crowd here. I'm Chamorro, Pacific Islander from Guam. Growing up in a matriarchal society has pushed me in both positive and negative ways to show up and lead as a powerful woman. This is also something that for me personally resonates absolutely, coming from a Filipino American background, family members that immigrated from the Philippines, and the role of women in various Asian cultures and society. I know for me personally, the topic of humility as a value was very important attribute for women in my community. And that comes as just kind of as our crowd member indicated, double-edged sword sometimes. There are moments where you feel the need and want to speak up for yourself, but aren't expected to do so. But in other ways, humble leadership. This is a trending topic, I feel like, right now, that people are posting about a lot, making sure that in addition to leading and speaking, you're also listening. You're listening to folks, you're hearing them. It's something that is very poignant for folks, not feeling heard or not feeling seen, and being able to be that type of leader that can sit back, listen, ask the right questions, and also just be there as a point of support. Can also be an advantage in that capacity. So just, definitely sharing a little bit from my own slice and corner of the Asian heritage there, and how that's affected my life and my leadership, and how it is that I know I personally do things and grapple with things as well today, the mixed challenges and opportunities. So we only have a few minutes left, but I just wanted to ask if there were topics that any of you wanted to bring up and make sure that the entrepreneurs within our community and the would-be entrepreneurs, the people who are thinking about making that jump, take away from this conversation. We definitely have a few minutes to answer this. So we'll kick it off in the same order with Team Medisyn.
Yeah, I can go ahead and get started. I think the first thing that all three, companies that are here, representatives, have touched on is the value of community and creating that sense of community, whether it's small businesses or on TikTok or people that need healthcare. And so I think really honing in on your target market and what value you can provide to the community such that they will stay with you and stay engaged is one of like the biggest takeaways.
Yeah, and I think something to add is just about, as an early entrepreneur, not moving to either extreme. So I've seen a lot of early entrepreneurs, think they're going to conquer the world tomorrow. And while, I love the ambition, sometimes it's just not practical. But I've also seen the other extreme, particularly from women, particularly from people of color, that is, I can only do this one thing and I have a very specific focus, but looking to expand is just not an option, or it is dreaming too big, as we've mentioned before. So I think some advice that I would give to anyone who's looking to start any type of business or enterprise is to really, really shoot for the middle and check yourself all the time. Make sure that you're not putting yourself in a box or setting goals that, you can't hit too soon, and that you will disappoint yourself if you don't hit that in your proposed time frame. And so making sure that on either extreme you understand your position and are setting yourself up to be successful.
That's a really important point around goal setting. It's something that can be so hard to do when you have a big vision, but setting the goalposts out too far can actually undermine our success. Really good point to bring up. Cynthia, how about you?
Yeah, I just have two things I wanted to touch on. The first is for social media. Just know that, it's going to take time, and you just have to be really consistent with it. So just like you are running your business, it's like you just have to be patient, put in the work, and, slowly but surely you'll start to see the fruits of your labor. So just be consistent with posting and engaging. And then in terms of just businesses, I think it's just important to double click on the fact that, you're not in this alone, and there's plenty of people out there who would be more than happy to help you. And so definitely leverage interns, give people opportunities. It's a total win-win for them and for you, for your business, to help you scale and to help you lessen some of the load that, you already have day to day.
Awesome. And we have a response. Good point. The checking in on yourself is more work than we might imagine. So it's a great reminder. And also from Cynthia, great reminders around consistency and not doing things alone, especially. It's so easy now in this, we're transitioning out of it, but like isolated pandemic environment, work remote, to just be stuck in your own head by yourself all day. So these are really helpful reminders. Lori, what do you want to make sure that people do not forget before they leave the room with us today?
I would say practice self-care. I think that's something that we tend to forget, especially during COVID. I mean, I'm not really walking the talk. I probably gained 15 pounds since shelter in place, and just been really stressed out. And I feel like if I am not eating healthy, if I am not consistently focusing on myself and improving myself and taking care of my own health and well-being, emotional and physical, then everything else kind of crumbles around me, right? And oftentimes when we try to take up too much, but we don't have enough to give, or we're running on empty, that's kind of a disaster waiting to happen. And there's too much on the line for us to break down, because as women, like, we are just, we hold everything. we keep everything running, and we have to take care of ourselves. Yep.
It's absolutely super important and a very neglected topic across founders and entrepreneurs. And, when you're surrounded with business partners and investors and customers and folks who are, really expecting you to make them money and you to provide for them, you have to remember that, hey, there's somebody who needs to, your own health and your own well-being, your own basics are supposed to be taken care of too. And it can just be very, very easy to forget when you're so busy with all the other things. Well, I think overall, we have touched on so many topics today, from refining your brand concept, refining your pitch, even refining your taglines. We've talked about marketing. We've talked about the financial basics. We've talked about assessment frameworks, a lot of scary things for entrepreneurs that need to be demystified, that our speakers today have done such a good job at breaking down step by step and demystifying and providing resources for in a way that I think I could go back and watch this recording many times over anytime I'm feeling lost. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to be posting this recording on our YouTube channel at Struct Club. So you can watch this again and again. Make sure to share with any friends who might be going through any aspects of struggling or envisioning that next step with anything from marketing to product development to pitching. And I really want to thank our speakers today for making the time, coming together. It's just with busy schedules, finding that time to come together to speak to our community. Aneri, Nehariika, Cynthia, and Lori, thank you so very much for coming together with us today.